Happy Tuesday afternoon, everybody. It's David Schlotthauer here in the home weather office for November the 26th, 2023. In today's update, we are tracking another big storm system that's going to develop rapidly across the deep south into the Midwest. This is going to trigger severe weather. We're also talking about flood concerns with this one. We're also talking about some very active stormy weather for the Pacific Northwest that could bring serious flooding, strong winds, and mudslide potential. Now, if you do enjoy these videos, please consider subscribing if you're new, hitting the like button, and sharing this video with your family and friends on social media. Also, check out my Facebook page. There will be a link in the description below this video, including my Twitter page as well. You can check that out too in the link in the description. So let's get talking about the big storm system that's going to rapidly develop in the Midwest. This is going to bring a lot of severe weather for southern Texas, for southern Louisiana. There could even be a tornado risk with this too. More than likely that's going to happen because we have a lot of moisture advecting northward with this developing system. So this is a look at the GFS for tomorrow afternoon. This is for November the 29th, 2023. So in about the next 36, maybe 30 hours or so, we're going to see these showers really pull in to the north. Look at this. We got some showers here popping up for southern Texas. That's, again, part of our upcoming system that's really going to get energized. So by Thursday morning, November the 30th, we can see here in the next 40 or so hours, showers, thunderstorms, again, flood concerns too, because we're going to have a lot of high PWAT values. Hence the El Nino that we're seeing that's going to fuel this system due to the subtropical jet and all the way into Friday morning, December the 1st, this really gets dynamic. Look at that. Intense rainfall over Louisiana, over Mississippi, including for Tennessee, all the way into central Missouri and southern Illinois. That surface low there, 1,002 millibars, just showing you how dynamic the system is. High pressure to the north, going to be limited in the amount of cooler air this is going to generate because it's moving from, say, southwest to northeast. And when the systems do this, right, they really don't pull in much in the way of cold air. Versus if a system kind of does this, right, it kind of comes out of the west, northwest, and even out of the northwest, you bring more cooler air with it. It tends to do that. Not always, but, you know, the likelihood scenario. And so by Friday morning, and Friday afternoon, that system really moves through very quickly into the Great Lakes, into the northeast by Friday afternoon and Friday evening. But there's much more than just this system to actually talk about. We're looking at the risk for severe weather for Houston, for Galveston, for Beaumont by the next 3 days or so. So we're looking at Thursday into Friday. We're going to see some severe weather, perhaps even the weekend, as this system really gets underway. So if you're in a slight risk for severe weather, please take this one seriously. A day 3 slight risk usually ends up being enhanced by day 1. Not all the time, but you know, the chances are higher with that occurring. When you take a look at the probabilistic, a non-significant risk for severe weather, which is good. But don't be surprised if there is one of these perimeters do become significantly warned or kind of, you know, the chances are there. But yeah, right now you're under a slight risk and this needs to be taken a bit seriously. Also, the amount of rainfall that this is going to generate, the Weather Prediction Center has went ahead and issued a marginal risk for heavy rainfall all the way from, say, St. Louis, all the way down towards Jonesboro, Little Rock, Arkansas, Shreveport, Monroe, Louisiana, Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Louisiana, into Galveston. So if you are in the marginal risk, there is some sort of a threat and concern for some flooding in rural areas. Small creeks, small streams, some of the riverbeds could also kind of become elevated, maybe some street flooding as well. This is typical with El Nino, especially the further south you get, and you definitely need the rain, especially for Louisiana. And you can see why. There is an exceptional extreme drought for Louisiana. I mean, this is really, really concerning. This is bad. This is on historical levels, folks. I mean, southern Louisiana, you really, really need the rain. And I'll tell you what, I would rather handle a marginal risk for flooding. I don't want to be rude about it, but like, you guys are probably like, oh, we need it. We need the rain bad. And so you're at least going to get some sort of impacts with more intense rainfall, but this could also lead to excessive runoff because there's going to be too much rain too quickly in a short amount of time, and that could really exacerbate the flood threat. But, you need the rain, and you're probably looking at that marginal risk and saying, you know what, we can take a marginal risk over a high risk for flooding, right? A marginal risk is not even that bad versus a high risk, if that makes sense. So there is an exceptional drought in the darkest red. There is an extreme drought in the red for Monroe, Louisiana. I mean, this is really, really bad. So I'm thankful. I'm really thankful that you all are going to get some relief. Back to the weather map we go for the weekend. We have another system that develops here, bringing more beneficial rainfall for the deep south locations, such as Louisiana, southern Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia, including for northern Florida as well, thanks to that subtropical jet that is going to be very strong, and that's going to really get the lift going. That's going to get a lot of moisture transport, and so good news ahead for Louisianians as well as Floridians, Georgians, as well as Alabamians and Mississippians. I hope I'm making you guys laugh with all of this. So good news coming for these areas with more rainfall coming. Now, by early next week, the weather pattern becomes more complicated as the GFS is trying to resolve some forecasting equations. A great example is that system that develops by early next week, another big one for the Northeast. This one could either trigger way too much snow or quite a bit of rainfall and some strong winds. So let's kind of take a look at this one a little bit closer. So going into early next week, there's that system that tries to develop for Tuesday morning across the Northeast, bringing a little bit of snow for the higher elevations like Mount Washington, but most likely it's going to be a rain event for the lower elevations. Now again, 168 hours out, this is roughly about 7 to 8 days away from today, and so there's a lot of variability in the model. There have been some crazy outcomes with some big nor'easters, heavy snow for that area versus simply something like this, just a lot of rainfall as there's limited amounts of cooler air. So there's a lot of differences, okay? I want to make that clear with you all that there is not a solid forecast on that system just yet as the GFS is working out some wrinkles, and we can see just how different the model is here with each run, maybe snow, maybe not, right? And so that's what I want to make sure you all understand clearly. The further out in time you get, the more uncertain the forecast becomes, especially when we have a complicated setup with the jet stream flow this time of the year. Okay, now that we talked about the deep south and the northeast, including for the Midwest, it's a great idea that we briefly talk about what is going to be happening. Big time storms for the Pacific Northwest, including for Northern California. In fact, we could see a couple of feet of rainfall in some locations in the higher elevations, like the Cascades. So yeah, brace yourself, folks. When it rains, it pours, and it's going to be awfully hard at times. And it's going to get quite annoying when you think about it. Well, let's take a look at our cute GFS. This is for tomorrow morning, November the 29th. Our first system hits California, it really dissolves. That's all you got to say. Really not going to do much at all. Second system moves into the Pacific Northwest. You can see that cold front bringing a lot of rainfall, some gusty winds. This is more of a cooler system, not so much atmospheric river based, not subtropical kind of origin, but it's going to bring in some moisture for the higher elevations, like in the form of snow. And then the storms get a little wetter and a little warmer. And you can see that the snow levels do go up a little bit. You can see some of that blue, some of the green on your screen. An indication that you're going to have a lot of rainfall in the lower elevations. And then that moves through. And then another one swings on through, bringing more showers and thunderstorms potentially as that lift. A lot of energy associated with this. For Northern California, might get something, but not for our area. I mean, Northern California will get, hopefully, enough rain to kind of keep the drought from forming there, and then that breaks away, and then it goes back into Oregon and Washington through the next 7 to 8 days, and it just continues and continues. I can go about this for the next 10 days, showing you all lots of rainfall up there. Storm after storm after storm. Dry now, won't last for too much longer. What about the ensemble forecast on the GEFS forecast? Well, for the Pacific Northwest, you could see anywhere between 7 to 10 inches of rainfall. If we just look at one simple model, that's the operational GFS, probably going to go for almost 2 feet of rainfall. And that's why we got to kind of keep it more generous by looking at our GFS or GEFS, the ensemble. And then the southeast and the deep south, look at this, quite a bit of rainfall in the next, let's go back actually, where I don't want to go out that far. Let's actually go out to 10 days. You might see as much as 2 to 4 inches in Georgia for the southern portion there of the deep south, with more moisture on the way for the northeast, where you might get about 1.5 inches to almost 2 inches, near average for this time of the year. But look at California, really not going to get a whole lot over the next 10 days potentially, and even beyond that, if we go further out, less than 1/2 inch of rainfall in the next 16 days through mid-December. That's pretty concerning, despite of an El Nino that is in the process of developing. So now, before we get to talking about temperatures, let's talk about our jet stream forecast. So the one thing's for sure is we're going to have a very active subtropical jet for the Midwest and the Northeast. That's why we're going to get some crazy winter storms, some heavy rain, severe weather events because of this. The first system right there, you can see that little disturbance noted on the 250 millibar jet stream forecast on the GFS. And then look at this. The jet gets going, that subtropical jet ripping through the southeast and the northeast. And this, again, going to trigger that storm. And look how strong. Look at just, man, a lot of jet stream energy there. Winds 200 or 190 knots. That's very, very energetic, very strong. And the gradient is also very tight between that. So we're going to have some cooler air, some limited amounts of cooler air, because, again, this is a subtropical jet, really not a polar jet, and that's going to really unleash a lot of rain. And that continues. Look at this, very energetic for the eastern half of the U.S. by the 5th and the 6th of December, and then eventually ridging will try to build back there in the next 10 days. Now, the one thing in common about this upcoming weather pattern is there's not going to be a whole lot of Arctic intrusions. And in fact, the latest GFS virtually has nothing in the forecast other than the deep south, where temperatures will be below average, typical with an El Nino, and it's all because of that rainfall that's going to be accumulating for those regions. So yeah, unless you're in the deep south, everywhere else you see above average temperatures. You can see this. I'm just going to kind of breeze through this fairly quickly over the next 5 days. Again, all the oranges and reds indicate, and even pinks there really denote above average temperatures for much of the Midwest and the eastern half. Look at that, Georgia, you have temperatures 10 to 20 degrees above normal for this time of the year. And while it is cooler than it is in summertime, it is going to be still above average. By Monday next week, you can see still really limited amounts of cooler air. And this is what we're talking about. Not coming from the polar regions, coming southward here. We're going to see this cooler air really hugging much of the southeast and even for portions of the northeast, which is, I guess, in some sense better than above average, but it's going to be limited. All right, we're not seeing 30 or 40 degrees below average. We're not talking about a monstrous historic Arctic outbreak by any means, nothing like that. Just one of those typical weak Arctic or kind of cool air shots that we're gonna see. And then look at this, by day 10 potentially on the GFS, really going all over the place at the moment, but right now they're starting to agree that temperatures will be well above average through the 8th of December, and this could continue all the way in. I mean, really not seeing any organized Arctic outbreaks. Okay, a really warm early December it seems to be here for much of the Midwest. So looking at those air temperatures really quickly, let's kind of fast forward this, trying to keep these videos rather short and not too long. And 84 hours out, you can see the cooler air moves out, right? It's over into Hudson Bay, into Canada, leaving a lot of this region warmer than average. Temperatures in the 40s and 50s potentially at times in the Midwest. In the deep south, you're going to get more cooler air again, but look at it, warms back up by day 10 with temperatures there in the 50s and 60s. If you're in the west and the Pacific Northwest, also going to see above average temperatures because we're going to see a lot of ridging bombarded by subtropical jet flow that's going to advect more warmer and moisture into California, the Oregon and Washington region. So really no big Arctic air masses to even speak of, at least right now through the 8th or the 9th of December. But we all know that can change because the nowcasting affects the forecast. But otherwise, I sure hope you did enjoy today's detailed weather forecast for the big storms that we're expecting with not very much cold Arctic outbreaks. Please subscribe, share this video with your family and friends on social media, and yeah, you gotta literally break the subscribe and like button and share this with your large families, relatives, siblings, and ancestors. All right, get the word out about this upcoming pattern. All right, but I'll be back with you more tomorrow with another detailed weather forecast. But not only that, don't forget to also check out the Twitter and Facebook pages. Links in the description below this video.